7th US Grand Prix from Indianapolis is here. We had the X-rated version last year. This will be more viewer-friendly. Over to our commentary team of Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Angus. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Indianapolis. Formula One has moved 900 miles southwest since last Sunday's race in Montreal. We're 3 hours from Chicago in America's Midwest. They're big on food here, big on religion, and very big on motorsports. And they've got a man to cheer for the first time on home soil since 1983, an American driver, Scott Speed, racing in the US, and he's done very well here this weekend, qualifying 13th, a season best for him. Well, Michael Schumacher hasn't led a single lap since the Spanish Grand Prix 3 races ago, and for a man not accustomed to being the bridesmaid in Formula One, this has certainly been a frustrating couple of months for him. But today, he has a chance to turn that around. Ferrari and Bridgestone have got their package absolutely spot on this weekend, and Schumacher has a great opportunity not only to claim his 3rd win of the season, but to take a big bite out of Fernando Alonso's 25-point championship lead. He'll be relying heavily on Ferrari teammate Felipe Massa, who starts alongside him on the front row of the grid today, not to make any mistakes and to come through behind him. And then Alonso, well, he's going to have to work very hard. He's going to have to deal with Kimi Räikkönen, Giancarlo Fisichella and Jenson Button, all of whom have great chances of winding up on the podium here this afternoon. It really is going to be very intense between those guys. Certainly the dream scenario for Schumacher would be for Alonso to score no points, and then he would have 8 races left in the championship with just a 15-point margin to Alonso. But that is some way off. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little. There's an hour and a half of very intense racing here at the Brickyard before that comes true for Schumacher. Well, we've got an absolutely wonderful crowd here this weekend. Certainly to the naked eye, I would say more people here than there were last year. They're very enthusiastic, and whereas last year they were throwing beer cans at Michael Schumacher's Ferrari, this weekend they've been blowing kisses, and he's responded, look at that, on pole by a second faster than any other non-Ferrari car. Barrichello again ahead of Button, but considerably lighter on fuel, we believe. Alonso, we think, is going to go about 6 or 7 laps longer than Michael Schumacher, and Kimi Räikkönen possibly 10 laps longer than Schumacher in the opening stint. The Michelin tyres certainly going to work better, I think, in race conditions than they did yesterday in qualifying, and that's what all the Michelin teams are backing. Once again, Montoya and Webber outside the top 10 in qualifying, as you can see. Best of the year for Albers and Montero. The 2 Midlands have been hooked up here this weekend, and right at the back, Liuzzi takes a 10-place drop for an engine penalty. He actually only qualified in 19th place anyway. And Rosberg, well, he is right at the very back because he missed a weight check. Where is Jarno Trulli, you're asking? He's starting from the pit lane because he had to take his car out of Parc Fermé this morning to change some suspension parts.
When the first car comes to the grid, and Jarno, you obviously pay attention for the light. Once it turns green, you can go. Guys, you need to be ready here next to the pit lane should we have a stall. We'll come to the car, we'll fire it up, we can do it as long as it's not over that line. And that's that normal grid procedure. So once I call for the formation lap to start, we'll get rid of the small trolley also with disconnected tire warms.
Very commonsensical, complete team briefing there for driver and the rest of the crew, basically saying we'll fire this engine up when the first car, i.e. Michael Schumacher, gets back to the grid. We know it then takes the rest of the pack something around 40 seconds to form up. You don't want to be ticking over too long there, and then another procedure in case he stalls the engine. Now, the problem Jarno Trulli will have from starting in that position is when he arrives down into turn 1, he'll still be doing the thick end of 200 miles an hour, and he'll have absolutely stone-cold brakes, so he needs to be careful when he gets down there. They will release him, the light will change as soon as the last car crosses the line and is underway. Felipe Massa there doing a very good supporting role. Michael Schumacher gave him a chivvy up recently saying, hey, I need more from you, and he certainly delivered that this weekend so far. Let's see how the race pans out. Now, if you were a Ferrari, you know Michael, you want Michael on pole because of the championship positions. You would fuel Massa longer. Hope he gets down to turn 1 before the Renaults, and then, because they had such a margin in their pocket in qualifying, fuel him a bit longer, and then hopefully give Michael Schumacher some breathing space up front. So Massa's got a key role to play. Fisichella's got to spoil that strategy completely from P3 on the grid, and Alonso really needs to nail Barrichello before he gets down to turn 1 to keep himself in play.
Yeah, Alonso slower than his teammate Fisichella really all weekend, which is pretty much the first time we've seen that this season. He's not been getting on at all well with this Indianapolis circuit. It's a bit of a bogey track for him. He's got a trophy from every current racetrack in his cabinet at home, except from this place. He's going to have to work very, very hard even to get the most basic trophy here this afternoon, particularly with teammate Fisichella so up at the moment, Martin. The confidence is really high. He's renewed his contract and it's been announced, so the weight is really off his shoulders. And I have to say, Fisichella's been the class of the Renault drivers this weekend.
Without doubt. What I don't understand fully, we've seen Alonso so fast at all the different kind of racetracks, whether it's Monaco or whether it's Barcelona, totally different environments to set a Formula 1 car up in, and somehow or other he never got the front end of his Renault to stick this weekend. And he said nothing we could do much with Parc Fermé when I spoke to him on the grid. They can crank a bit more front wing on, although we've heard from a lot of drivers that actually you can go past the point of no return on that and give away front downforce, or they can adjust the tyre pressure slightly. But other than that, there's nothing much they can do to help him. So that is why I think he's in a damage limitation mode. We could actually do with a DNF, to be frank, couldn't we? We could do with Michael Schumacher 10 out of 10 here this weekend and pull that championship much closer together for a thrilling finale to this season, or second half of this season, I should say.
I think certainly under 20-point margin, Alonso to Schumacher with 8 races still to go, still leaves a lot of room for things to develop, because Ferrari have not got exactly a B-spec car coming out in Magny-Cours, but Ross Brawn was saying on Friday it's a very heavily revised car that we'll be seeing in 2 weeks' time at the French Grand Prix, with completely revised aerodynamics and a step on the engine. And they're not softening at all in their challenge for this year's World Championship. So 73 laps of this Grand Prix, about 190 miles, good deal shorter than most of the US races here. The Indianapolis 500, of course, and the NASCAR event here runs over 400 miles, but it's fast and furious stuff, and the Americans really seem to enjoy it.
Well, Fisichella, no doubt under clear instruction to do so by the team, is hanging right back, and he's almost acting like pole position man. And so Michael's parked on the grid, and Fisichella's still coasting towards his slot, and that means his tyres will be warmer than Michael Schumacher's for that all-important start.
But very little around here will be warmer than Michael Schumacher's engine by the time the back of the grid cars form up. This is going to be a very long hold for Michael Schumacher.
Massa down here. Michael's about 5-6 centimetres past his yellow line, which is okay. Massa's a metre behind his. He's thrown away part of his advantage. He doesn't need to be doing that with the fast starting. There is Massa. You can see just how far behind he is on that yellow line, which is where he's allowed to start from. Look how long they're taking to form up. This is ridiculous.
Well, Schumacher's been standing there for half a minute now. Wonder what the temperatures are doing. A lot of concern, I would imagine, in the Ferrari garage about this. So the 7th running of the US Grand Prix at Indianapolis will begin when the lights go out. They're away, cracking start by Schumacher. Even better start by Massa though. Massa was better away. He's inside his teammate on the run down to turn 1. He's going to take the lead here. Schumacher is going to have to tuck in behind him. Alonso is behind Fisichella. Goes round the outside of Michael Schumacher, and he's going to take bang wheels for second place. And we've got carnage at the back. Quite a few cars involving a Red Bull, certainly a Toro Rosso. Schumacher has resisted Fisichella. He had to. And Massa is leading this Grand Prix. Schumacher's second. Alonso is third. He got ahead of Fisichella in that melee. Scott
McLaren
Speed
in there too. There's
a local driver.
And they'll have to deploy the safety car. They have, because those cars that are stationary are right in the firing line of the massive braking zone. And is Michael Schumacher trying to overtake under the yellows? Thought better of that. So the safety car is out then.
And the McLaren is none other than, well, we haven't got Kimi Raikkonen or Juan Montoya. Neither of them are showing us having come through. Only 15 cars have gone through the first timing beam, Martin, and neither of them are McLarens.
Yeah, it's the midfield, it's the back end of the top 10, early part of the teens on the grid, because Coulthard's gone from 17th to 10th. So it's in that pack in front of him, and there is the carnage then, down in between turn 1 and turn 2. So Massa leads Michael Schumacher under the safety car conditions.
projected McLaren garage there. Norbert Haug, the boss of Mercedes Motorsport. Well, their two drivers lasted about 600 metres of this Grand Prix. There is Nick Heidfeld, who's also out. So we've lost Raikkonen, Heidfeld, Montoya, Webber, Speed, Klein, and Frank Montagny. So 7 cars in all have been eliminated in that crash at the beginning. There's Ron Dennis, the boss of McLaren, looking to sort of see a replay of what happened, really, as we all are. Clearly it was a midfield pile-up. Here it goes, Martin. Let's take a look at the midfield.
Yeah, and it's going to be at speed, because one of them's made it through a big gravel trap right into the barrier itself. Villeneuve got a great slingshot out of P5 on the grid. Two McLarens 3 or 4 rows back on the right-hand side, line astern. Now, who's going to get it wrong? They just concertina up into 1 point. It's actually in, well, there's an incident in the back of the field. Now, there's a second incident goes on, what must be down at turn 3. So the McLarens are line astern, and then actually the two McLarens get into each other. Oh, we got a roller there. Heidfeld's done a triple roll, and I think it was triggered by the two McLarens getting into each other. There we go, and at the front of it, Button spins round. There then the Toro Rosso of Scott Speed, the local hero, gets caught up in that. We're on board then with Speed, and we're gonna find those two, they touch in front. Two McLarens got into each other. Heidfeld's rolling, and then Speed tries to get out of the way and clips the wheel. He ends up hitting both McLarens, actually. The second one gently. This is Raikkonen making a bit of hay around the outside of turn 1, and he gets shoved at the back, and in fact it looks like the whole thing was started by Montoya. Whether Montoya was given a bit of a helping hand there as well, I don't know. Scott Speed out of the race.
Welcome back to Indianapolis. Well, last year's race was contested by only 6 cars because of problems with the Michelin tyres. We've got only 15 still circulating now, and we're under safety car conditions. We've lost Kimi Raikkonen, Nick Heidfeld, Juan Pablo Montoya, Mark Webber, Scott Speed, Christian Klein and Montagny.
We need to know if you need a front wing.
I can't see the damage, I don't know.
Jensen, tell me if you need a front wing.
Chef, I don't know. Check the cars when I come past.
Roger that.
Well, the reason he doesn't know is he's not been at any speed. He got caught up, but there were two incidents down at the first and second corner. And Jensen said, I don't know if my front wing's broken. I haven't been up to speed to feel the understand. Of course, from the cockpit, you've got no chance of even looking at your front wing. You can slacken off your seat belts, but you still can't get a good view of your own front wing. So he's saying, have a look when I come past. And but Button got spun out, got caught up. I believe it was started by Montoya getting into the back of Kimi Raikkonen between turns 1 and 2. There was a separate incident with Klein on the way into turn 1. And then Montoya hit the back of Raikkonen. Now, whether Montoya was helped into that, we don't know. Button has decided to come into the pit. He may as well, because he's right at the back of the pack anyway, effectively. And he's smoking heavily, though, which I don't know. Nick Heidfeld's done a triple roller there, we'll show you shortly. And Louise has found him.
Nick, that was one hell of an accident for you.
I think it looked worse than it actually was, because I didn't have a huge impact. I was flipping, which actually was the first flip I ever had in a car, but it was not bad.
Any idea what caused it from where you were?
I just briefly saw it on the big screen. I think both McLaren collided, and that spun Kimi around and pushed him into me.
Thanks, Nick. Let's go to Ted.
Yeah, and I think it's bad news for Jenson Button. You saw in the pictures there, he came into the garage. You heard the radio message. Jenson said that he couldn't see if the front wing was damaged, but listen, it goes much worse than that. We saw it smoking, and now they are clearing a space in the Honda garage for Jenson Button. We think this one's terminal, James.
Thank you, Ted. Yes, it was a spectacular accident, or in fact make that 2 accidents from the start line. Watch the midfield group and also watch the group at the back. The group at the back have the accident into turn 1, and the midfield group of the 2 McLarens on the right with the red wings, you can see, watch them into turn 2.
Yeah, so it's Alonso making the best of the first corner, going round the outside of Michael Schumacher. He doesn't care if he has a shunt or not, but then they all concertina in the middle. The first accident is at the back, involving 4 cars, but shortly after that, Montoya's going to tag the back of his teammate right now, put him into a spin. He collects Heidfeld. Heidfeld goes rolling. Button spins around, and Scott Speed gets caught up in the aftermath, actually tagging both McLarens. This is Alonso at the front trying to pass Michael Schumacher, as in the background Heidfeld goes spinning. Scott Speed for Toro Rosso goes half flying, and the McLarens are around. We're on board now with Scott Speed to see it all over again, and he's minding his own business on the inside. Look over to your left. Look at the 2 McLarens getting into each other. They then go into Button. He puts Heidfeld into the air, and Scott Speed collects the aftermath and both McLarens. That's an expensive accident. And this is on board Raikkonen, and you're going to feel a shove at the back end any minute now, and round he goes. And that's when he gets into Button. We don't know if Montoya was given any assistance from behind, but I don't think he was.
Well, that's the aftermath. A very, very expensive car park of wrecked motor cars, and a lot of work to be done. It's a good job it's not the first race of the 2. Well, Scott Speed, we saw an innocent party in that. He must be absolutely gutted, Louise Goodman, to be out of his first US Grand Prix.
Well, let's ask him, James. Scott, through no fault of your own, you're out of your first Grand Prix.
At the end of the day, that's motorsport, isn't it? I mean, we were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but nonetheless, we had a great weekend up to this point, and, you know, one of these days things are going to go our way and we're going to have a good result.
You're taking it very well, but you must be so disappointed because you qualified so high up.
Yeah, we had such a great opportunity. Even the start was awesome. I had passed Weber and Schumacher into turn 1, and we were sitting really, really good, but it can happen.
Thanks, Scott. Let's get some more news from Ted.
Yeah, and down at Honda, we thought it's all over. We saw Jenson Button being wheeled into the garage, but amazingly he's still in the car. And just lean over to Nick Fry. Nick, what's going on? Is it over or not?
We're having a look. It looks like it might be. He's suffering from low water pressure, which probably means something's damaged, but we're going to give it a look, and then if we can get him out, we will. But according to the rules, we can't add water to the vehicle, so if it is short of water because it's been damaged, then probably that's the end of it for him, which is very unfortunate, obviously.
Okay, thanks very much, Nick.
Another bird's eye view of Scott Speed innocently being taken out of the Grand Prix, and Norbert Hausheim. Has he been flying in through the air? Yes, the answer is Nick Heidfeld, of course, so we now know well, did the triple somersault. Very nasty that, when the rollover protection you have, which is very significant and has been massively enhanced in these recent years, but when that digs into the gravel, you can be a bit exposed inside the cockpit. But clearly Nick Heidfeld says it's the first time I've ever flipped a racing car. Actually, it was quite good fun. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But Heidfeld then is okay. But this is critical, James, because the tyre pressures on these cars going round in 1 minute 58s instead of 1 minute 10s is for 4 odd laps. The tyre temperatures and the tyre pressures critically are falling. Now, on that banking, that is bad news.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's a safe restart then here at Indianapolis. We've had 5 laps in total. Safety car deployed really after the start line incident. Let's just reiterate who's out of this Grand Prix. Jenson Button's thinking about going out. He's 15th at the moment. Definitely out are Raikkonen, Heidfeld and Montoya. So both of the McLarens and one of the BMWs. Weber in the Williams, Speed in the Toro Rosso, Klein for Red Bull, and Frank Montagny, who was caught up in the accident at the back at the start and into turn 1 rather, in the Super Aguri. So both McLarens out of this Grand Prix.
Button's gone as well now, so we're down to 14 runners. Surely this is a good opportunity if Massa's going to have to let Michael Schumacher pass to give him. He's got to be careful he doesn't go too early. And it's a long way to the pit lane from there. He's got to let that safety car get away. The safety car goes off to the left. Massa's gone. Michael Schumacher's asleep.
Well, that's unbelievable, isn't it? Michael Schumacher, look how far behind Felipe Massa he is. Massa spotted that the safety car was going off to the left rather than coming into the pit lane, and it's several hundred metres between Massa and his teammate as they cross the line. Some action at the back, though. Look at this, the two Renaults are getting together. Alonso was in front of Fisichella as they went across the start-finish line, and Alonso is still in front of Fisichella.
Yeah, Barrichello. Oh, we've got a spinner. It's the Midland spinning in the track, in the middle of the track. And looks like he could well have had a tag from Takuma Sato there in the Super Aguri. So all action going on. Coulthard there's managed to stay out of it. He's still P10 at the moment. Montero up in P9 for Midland. Rosberg, who started at the back of the grid, is 8th now.
We need to put a bit of cotton wool around some of these cars and make sure we've got plenty to get us to the finish. Remember, the points down to 8th place available in Formula One, and we've only got, well, 13 or 14 runners, depending on whether that Midland gets going again. Jarno Trulli, who started from the pit lane, avoided all that mess, of course. He's in 13th at the moment. So you've got two Ferraris at the front, then you've got two Renaults, then you've got the Honda of Rubens Barrichello. Jacques Villeneuve has been passed, I think, by Ralf Schumacher on that lap, it looks like. So Ralf Schumacher, if that's the case, up to 6th place. Damage there, heavy damage on the car of Thiago Montero, and he's going to have to come back into the pits.
And what was interesting is Michael Schumacher's now only 0.3 of a second behind. Yellow flags waving, so no overtaking down at turn 1. There'll be debris on the track. Alonso having to feverishly defend from his teammate. I suspect they're on different strategies, and this is not good news for Fisichella, but he's not about to get any help or service from Fernando Alonso today. Michael Schumacher, we saw how far behind he started on that lap because Massa got the jump on him on that restart, and he was right behind him over the line. Here we go again, and I think this is going to be Sato coming up the inside, hits the curb, flies through the air, and tags Montero. Are we now down to just 12 cars? Montero did cross the line, actually.
It's not the first time a Super Aguri has got into a Midland on a start, has it? You know, it happened at Imola as well, with Christian Albers being flipped over by Yuji Ide. Spectacular accident that was too, and certainly the Super Aguri seemed to start pretty well, it must be said, but it's not helping Midland very much. So only one Midland car appearing to be left in it, and that's Christian Albers, currently in 12th place. Montero has been in the pits, and this is lap 8 then. Yellow flag still down into turn 1, no overtaking into turn 1. The prime overtaking place here at Indianapolis has Fisichella. Some debris there, do you see, get thrown up? That's always a danger here at Indianapolis. Remember, a couple of years ago, we had some cut tyre problems with debris.
Trulli passing Coulthard there for position. So that's 9th now for Trulli, 10th for David Coulthard. But yes, there is debris on the track, and Montero's carrying on. He's got a flapping under tray, and his car will be handling like a wheelie bin with that kind of problem, and therefore he's had to come in the pits.
He certainly has, but that definitely was a pass, Jarno Trulli, I think, under yellow flags. It's quite clear down the main straight. The yellow you can see at the top of your screen is to indicate that, and our computer, which is connected to race control, says we have waved yellow flags before turn 1, so I think Trulli might be in trouble for that.
The only thing I would say, though, is that Trulli was shown in front of Coulthard as they crossed the line before the yellow flag zone. He actually was already registered as 9th when he crossed the line last time. So that's well spotted, James, but really touch and go, I'd imagine, on that yellow flag situation. And still Alonso is defending from Fisichella. And as you said before, Fisichella's been so much faster than Alonso all weekend.
Well, here they come down the straight. This is where he's at its closest. Is he going to have a go this time? No, he's not. Obviously still got a yellow flag down there. And, well, we've seen debris in the past, as I mentioned. It's such a dangerous thing here at Indianapolis as Alonso slides around the apex of turn 2 and turn 3. That's exactly what Martin was talking about before. The car just hasn't seemed under him all weekend. It's a real fight. Let's have a look at it from the perspective of Giancarlo Fisichella, who doesn't trouble the apex too much there. And that's Fernando Alonso right in front of us. Let's see how it's going.
Well, they're lapping about a second per lap slower than the Ferraris, which is what we expected, isn't it? That's the kind of pace advantage the two Ferraris have had. Now, I would say Michael Schumacher will not be comfortable. He's in the turbulent, very, very hot air of his teammates Ferrari. And I'm surprised Ferrari letting them run line astern like that. It's 51 degrees on the track, 36 air temperature. Add another 10 for the hot air coming off the car in front of you. Pretty much the same for the Renaults too, isn't it? Barrichello hanging on to them nicely in 5th place. Ralf Schumacher, solid 6th. 6 seconds off the lead at the moment. Villeneuve, Rosberg 8th, Trulli 9th, Coulthard 10th, and Louise has found who I think is the culprit in that incident, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Well, Juan Pablo, tell us about that one from your perspective.
Well, it's hard to say, you know, I was following Kimi. Kimi braked really hard. I hit Kimi a little bit on the back. And when I hit him in the back, Rubens or whoever it was, or Jenson hit me in the side, and it's like, you know, everybody turned left, right and center, and it just cars were going left, right and center.
So from your perspective, who was it that actually triggered off that whole chain of events?
I'm not gonna. I don't think it's a blame or anybody. I think Kimi braked really hard. I hit him, and when that happens, just everything from there on went backwards.
Thanks, Juan Pablo.
No brake lights on Formula One cars, but I'm not sure he'll put it quite like that when he sees the replay. But it's easy standing up here with an aerial view. Looks completely different peering out of these things.
It's an awkward moment for Juan Montoya, if indeed blame can be laid at his door. It's an awkward moment for him to have done that, really. Under pressure, clearly we're hearing he's almost certainly not going to be driving for McLaren next year. His manager is going around the paddock trying to find an opening for him. And moments like that don't do any good, do they, when you're trying to sell your driver? No,
and of course he got caught up with Rosberg last weekend, didn't he, just 7 days ago, and was out of the Grand Prix by then, following that up with a slap of the wall too. So difficult days for Juan Pablo Montoya. Alonso keeping a close eye on his teammate. Ralf Schumacher now beginning to really hustle Barrichello for 5th place too. So we may only have 12 runners. And that was the crazy thing about Sato into Montero. This is the day when, as it was last year because of the crazy 6-car start, but this is the day when Midlands and Super Aguris scoop up the cheap points. They've got to maximise these days. There's a long way to go yet. We're only on lap 12 and just 12 runners, 8 of whom are going to go home with some points tonight.
Well, I never thought I'd hear myself say it, but we're getting into a situation now where the reigning world champion, and already a winner of 6 races this season, is beginning to form a train behind him. Fernando Alonso is definitely holding up Giancarlo Fisichella, and Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher are coming across to join them, as is Jacques Villeneuve. So we could well have a 5-6 car train behind the reigning world champion. That'll be an interesting situation. The Ferraris lapping in the high 1:13s at the moment. Massa is leading. Michael Schumacher is in 2nd place. Alonso is 3rd. Fisichella is 4th. 5th is Rubens Barrichello. 6th is Ralf Schumacher. 7th, Jacques Villeneuve. 8th, having started in the pit lane, is Jarno Trulli, as once again Fisichella thinks about a pass into turn 1. There's Montero. He's out of the Grand Prix, as are many people this afternoon. And Ted Kravitz has some news for us.
Yeah, and it was just plain dangerous. The whole right-hand side of his side pod was just completely missing, and bits were flying off. I think you can see on the main straight bits of carbon fibre just flying off all over the place. But just a thought on these Renaults, James. What do they do? I mean, we think that Fernando Alonso is fueled quite a bit heavier than Giancarlo Fisichella, so this is ruining Fisichella's strategy. Do they swap them over? I don't suppose they can.
Well, if they want to. They can't really put that across the radio. That's team play, although I think that's crazy, because the only way team orders come in effect at Grand Prix is in the closing stages. If you've got 2 cars on different strategies, normally the drivers just have a sensible pill and sort that out for themselves, but Alonso is going to a lot of trouble to keep Fisichella behind him.
Well, if you remember last year's Canadian Grand Prix, we had Fisichella in front of Alonso. Alonso was getting really agitated on the radio, saying, I'm much faster than him, let me through, let me through. It went on for lap after lap, and it was that agitation that led to Alonso, when he finally got clear of Fisichella, putting the car in the wall because he was so fired up on that occasion. Here I imagine the situation is reversed. Fisichella will be well fired up by this. Well, we've already lost a number of cars here this afternoon. One of them, sadly, is Jenson Button, who had a great chance this afternoon of a podium. He's there, right there with Louise.
James has just pointed out, you had a great opportunity here this afternoon, all gone in that flurry at the first corner. Have you got any idea what happened?
Well, it is, to start with, it's very disappointing because we had fueled really long. You know, it's easy to say that now, but that is the truth. Yeah, pretty long for us. And I don't know what happened. I think Montoya hit my back wheel. He had enough room on the inside. He had so much room. I don't know if he just understeered or what, or if he hit Kimi up the bum. I don't know. Can we say that on air?
We just did.
And then he just pushed me into Heidfeld, and then he rolled over. And it was it's just a big mess. I was surprised that I could drive away. Really shows how strong our car is.
The team have spent a lot of time trying to work on the car, but no way they could fix it to get you out again.
No, we're trying to get out because there's so few cars out there, but it's going to take too long. The problem, and with an issue that we had running like that for 2 laps has probably damaged the engine. So.
Bad luck.
So that's Jenson Button a bit dejected. Is Fisichella going to have a go this time? I think he is. Down the inside to turn 1. Fisichella swoops through and takes that place. Alonso didn't really come across to try and close him off. And now we'll see the relative pace of the 2 cars. He has spent quite a few laps then tucked up behind his teammate, and it's cost him in terms of race time. Fisichella racing for a podium here.
Fisichella was off there, Alonso was well off the road there, James. Collected it back up again. The grass is quite dry now, but he's struggling and he's lapping quite a bit slower than Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher and Villeneuve behind him. So the world champion very much under pressure. But I'm a little bit surprised here because the Ferraris are not romping away at the front as fast as I thought they would. They're doing sort of 14.0s and the pack behind 1 minute 14.4s. Here's a replay, and Alonso let him go. Alonso let Fisichella through there. Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. You can see the aerial shot very well. Just a little slight lift on the straight from Alonso. That was the moment there. Fisichella comes through, not even a wave to acknowledge it. He's frustrated, he's been held up for such a long time, and let's see now what Fisichella can do. But bear in mind, Alonso's main priority this afternoon is damage limitation. He wants Schumacher to take as few points out of his 25-point lead as possible, and every car that finishes between him and Schumacher means more and more pain for Alonso. Massa leads Michael Schumacher at the front with 58 laps to go in Indianapolis.
Now, go. You have 6 seconds to the Ferraris. They are doing 14 zeros.
So we've got just 12 cars still circulating here in Indianapolis, and full 58 laps in which more things can certainly happen. There is Jacques Villeneuve, currently on track for another points finish here this afternoon in 7th place. He's got Jarno Trulli behind him, who started from the pit lane, but he's some way behind him, 3.5 seconds. And Trulli the last at the moment of the point scorers. Great chance today for Rosberg to do something. He's currently 9th. David Coulthard, always a wily campaigner, an intelligent racer, is in 10th place, just 2 seconds behind Rosberg. And then Liuzzi and Albers rounding out the 12 of them. Now you can see Trulli behind Villeneuve on the racetrack. So from Alonso in 4th, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher and Villeneuve, we've got 5 cars separated by just over 2 seconds. Very close. Here's Ralf. Using all of the 19,000 RPM. On the back straight, building up to 180 miles an hour. 75 miles an hour there through turn 8. 40, the very, very slow turn 9. The golf course known as Brickyard Crossing is over on our left. This is turn 11, the important one, out onto the banking, 130 miles an hour. Slight correction there from Ralf Schumacher. And up we go onto the banking. You can see all the stands there for the Indianapolis 500. This is turn 1 of the oval, going round backwards. And just look at the size of this crowd here this afternoon, all the way down the main straight. Loving this. Reaching 210 miles an hour here before 200 pounds of brake pressure. There we go. Slow it down into 1. Lap 18 of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis, the 7th time Formula One cars have raced around this track. Michael Schumacher has dominated this event in the past, 4 times a winner here, and he was on pole position, but his teammate Felipe Massa is the man who's leading it at the moment. Massa leading Michael Schumacher by 1.5 seconds. Then there's a gap of 9 seconds back to Fisichella in 3rd place. There you can see the top 8. I'll tell you about an investigation that's going on into the accidents at the start in a moment. But first, let's hear from Thiago Monteiro, who must be spitting feathers, Louise Goodman. He was taken out by Sato at the restart.
Well, Thiago, you must have been feeling so relieved to make it through all the fuss at the first start and then taken out by Sato at the next one.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was really happy and relieved to go through the first mess. You know, I saw 2 cars rolling. It was a big mess. I saw a gap, and I'm actually made contact with another car, but I was able to go through, and I was P9. You know, minding my own world, and then suddenly once again one of the Aguri Suzuki drivers tried to win the race in the first lap, and it doesn't work. You know, you 70 laps to go, everybody's pushing hard, you have to be a little bit more careful. It's not the first time, that's what is really annoying. And look at the results, you know, he's out, I'm out. It's a waste of opportunity, because again, we've been competitive all weekend, and I think we could have scored points due to circumstances this weekend again.
Thanks, Thiago.
Pretty solid analysis there from Thiago Monteiro, and I think he's absolutely spot on. Liuzino beginning to put Coulthard under pressure, so that's an interesting one. See how far they go on their fuel. I don't know whether Coulthard got caught up in anything in that first corner. He seemed to be right in the middle of it, but somehow came out of the other end of it. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher is still trying very hard to maintain the gap to Massa. Massa's really driving nicely at the front of this Grand Prix. He is leading this Grand Prix extremely well, but to my amazement, after the qualifying pace that we saw, the other runners are only a few tenths of a second per lap slower than those Ferraris. It's not quite all over and done with as we expected from watching, you have to say, all of the free practice and qualifying. It looked like the Ferraris have got a second a lap in their pockets. Alonso just about hanging on to 4th place with quite a queue behind him now. Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Villeneuve and Trulli in a queue forming up behind the reigning and current World Championship leader.
Yeah, well, we saw a graphic a few moments ago saying that there was an investigation of the stewards involving cars 3, 4, 9, 15, etc., etc. Those cars were Raikkonen, Montoya, Webber, Heidfeld, Klein, Scott Speed and Montagny. Basically, all of the cars that were involved in those 2 accidents at the start. And what the stewards are saying is that after the race, they will have a very good look at that and decide what, if anything, they're going to do. And that's a slight hint that they might be taking some action against anybody they thought had caused such a big accident, and there might be a little knock-on effect to a future race there for someone.
Yeah, it looks more like a lottery draw, doesn't it, that list of numbers? And if I was Nick Heidfeld, I think I'd put those on my lottery ticket for next week after that little triple roll we had for him, but I'm pretty sure that'll be laid at the door of Juan Pablo Montoya.
And what about the accident at the turn 1 at the back? It was a bit harder to tell what was involved with that, because Christian Klein's car obviously took a massive whack, as did Mark Webber's Williams. Something went very wrong there in turn 1 amongst the back markers, didn't it?
It did, and I don't know. I'd be guessing, to be frank, if I came up with an answer to that one. It was so much going on down into that turn 1. It's a long, long run down there, and you arrive without optimal tyre and brake temperatures, but plenty of adrenaline going through the system. And, well, they're all fighting for the same piece of tarmac at the same time. One of those was Christian Klein, who was knocked immediately out of the race, and Louise Goodman has found him.
Hey. Well, Christian, big mess there one way and another.
Big mess, yeah. I passed already both the Midlands, and then it was just very, very tight at the first corner, and I was next to a Williams, and then just a lot of cars crashed together, and it's really a shame to finish the race so early on.
Are you surprised? I mean, it's not as if it's a terribly tight track or a really tight corner.
But it is very slippery. It's basically just one line, and the rest is very, very slippery, because we race just once a year here, and that makes it a lot more difficult.
Thanks, Christian.
Well, a Formula 1 car accelerates from 0 to 60 miles an hour in about 2.5 seconds off the start line, and from 0 to 125 miles an hour takes less than 5 seconds, equivalent to about 140 metres. Well, it's considerably more than that down to turn 1, so you can imagine the kind of speeds you're talking about from a standing start these cars would have achieved in that short run down to turn 1, then hitting the brakes hard. Normally at racing speeds they go through turn 1 at around 90 miles an hour.
This is very good, mate, very, very good. You're catching the Ferraris. Come on, keep it up.
Alan Permain, their race engineer for Giancarlo Fisichella. Now that he is free of his teammate Alonso, Fisichella is actually coming across. That last lap was the first time he took some time out of the Ferraris. He did a 1:13.1. They are lapping in the 1:13.3s. Massa has responded on that last lap. He's done a 13.2, and Fisichella is keeping the gap at under 10 seconds. But if he hadn't been held up behind Alonso for so long, he'd be right with them at this pace, wouldn't he?
I think he unquestionably would. Ted has some news.
Yeah, but this is still working. That tactical switch that Renault did, making Alonso move over Fisichella, still working for them, as you say. And James, I mean, how much are Ferrari shooting themselves in the foot here? As you say, Massa's managed to pick up his speed, but for the last 3 laps, he's been at least 2/10 slower than Michael Schumacher and holding his teammate up, who is falling into the clutches of Fisichella.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I don't actually see Michael Schumacher with that much pace in terms of he's not all over the back of the teammate. And now this is Liuzzi in last year's Red Bull with a few twists and turns in it to become this year's Toro Rosso with a detuned V10. And it was about to breeze past the Red Bull Ferrari, which will please Coulthard about like a wet Monday morning would and a big headache.
We saw it, didn't we, earlier in the season? Was it Bahrain, I think it was, where Liuzzi just breezed past Coulthard on the long main straight. And here we are again. It's Groundhog Day for Coulthard, with Tonio Liuzzi having had a disappointing qualifying session yesterday. He made a mistake, and he said he saw blue sky. He went up over a curb, knocked the bottom of the floor off his car, and that's why he was slow for the rest of the qualifying session, and qualified right at the back of the grid. He then, because he was towards the back, he thought he would take a new engine anyway, so he's got a fresh motor in there, and he's using it well here this afternoon. 11th at the moment, and just a couple of tenths of a second behind David Coulthard. That is the top 8 then at the moment. Remind you that Trulli started this race from the pit lane and thus avoided all the melee, the 2 accidents on the opening lap. So he is in the points for the 2nd race in a row here. We were hearing from poor old Jenson Button just before talking to Louise, and that's now 4 races in a row, Martin. Jenson hasn't scored any World Championship points.
Not at all the season he was expecting, is it? But he seemed, oh no, Jacques Villeneuve in the BMW, big lock up at the back, wheel coming off already. When you see the back wheels lock like that, it's because the hydraulic pressure, the engine stopped, failed, the hydraulic pressures go, and you lose then the clutch.
And first man then to make a scheduled stop this afternoon, Rubens Barrichello on lap 25 in the Honda. 7.5 seconds stationary time means he will stop again around about lap 50, 51, something like that. So Massa at the front, Schumacher behind him. But the big question is, who's got the most pace out of those two? Who's got the most fuel out of those two? And can Giancarlo Fisichella maintain the pace he's doing at the moment and come across and catch up the Ferraris? A lot of racing still to come here at Indianapolis. Still unbelievably hot here in the Midwest of America. 53 degrees the track temperature, 37 degrees the air temperature. As I was saying at the beginning, it's a bit more like Bahrain than it is like Indiana. And at the moment, you'd have to say that the Michelin tyres are starting to operate quite well in these temperatures. Fisichella is on the same pace as the Ferraris at the front. The problem for him is he lost best part of 8 seconds in the early laps, tucked up behind his teammate. So there's Barrichello, who's made that stop in 7th place. There's Rosberg in 8th. That's where Rubens popped back. Here's David Coulthard, still trying to fend off the attentions of Tonio Liuzzi. So Coulthard is just 2.5 seconds away from a World Championship points position.
Could that be Toro Rosso's first ever points as well this afternoon? They thought they'd scored one, didn't they, until in Australia, until Coulthard protested and got the point. A little bit of in-house politics there as the Red Bull team protested effectively the Toro Rosso team and got that World Championship point back. But they're all out there racing hard. Massa, a new fastest lap of the race now on a 1:12.9, followed by 1:13.00. for Michael Schumacher. Fisichella struggling to hang on now. He's 10 seconds adrift and about 6 seconds ahead of Alonso. Alonso's pace, it's gradually improving.
Yep, that last lap, Alonso's fastest of the race so far, 1:13.5. The Ferraris were doing those kind of lap times 10 laps ago with a lot more fuel in board. So quite interesting situation here. This Renault is not really working like it has done everywhere else so far this season. And Alonso has an uphill battle. I suppose the good news for him is that there is no longer Button and no longer Montoya.
Giancarlo has the balance. Okay, I'll do a little bit of front wing and a little bit of front tyre pressure in.
Lap 28 of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis. If you're just joining us, the two Ferraris are at the front, but it's not the usual man in the lead, it's his teammate. Felipe Massa is a second clear of Michael Schumacher at the front. Giancarlo Fisichella is trying to catch them. He's lapping at the same pace as them, but he was held up for quite a long time by his teammate, the reigning world champion, Fernando Alonso, who's really struggling with his car so far this weekend. We have lost quite a lot of cars from this Grand Prix. We had 5 laps under safety car at the beginning. We lost both of the McLarens, we lost BMW, we lost a number of other cars. The boss of McLaren, though, is now talking to Louise Goodman.
Ron, a lot of cars involved in that accident, but it appears that your two drivers were in at the very start of it.
Yes, there was, as far as we can tell from first scan of all the data, it was a tickable sort of chain reaction. Kimi got a little squeezed going into the first corner and braked a little early, but in the circumstances, you know, you brake to avoid running into someone. When Pablo was keeping an eye to the right because Button was starting to close on him and bump him, and you know, effectively then the whole thing started to sequence with Juan Pablo running into the back of Kimi, Jenson running into the side of Juan Pablo pretty simultaneously. So I think it was you know, just not enough road. It's so easy to be critical of one's own drivers when they're involved in an accident that takes both of them out. But I think you've got to be, you know, professional. We were very heavy. We were, you know, racing to the first corner for position, and a lot of the cars got squeezed, and consequences were several cars were taken out. I think the two incidents were linked optically, but not physically. I think you know, there was other drivers started to take avoiding action, which just saw various collisions take place. But it was really just a squeeze on the first corner, and I don't think anyone should be, you know, too criticised. It's one of those things.
Thanks, Ron.
Massa does the fastest lap to continue the leading of the Grand Prix as Michael Schumacher pits from second, and so does Fisichella then. So Alonso up to second place now. Fisichella the lighter of the Renaults, and as we expected, Michael Schumacher the lighter of the Ferraris. This is looking very good for Massa. They're going to have to orchestrate this one to get in behind Schumacher, but still, that's great news for Alonso in terms of his damage limitation. I think Ron has been correct there. You win together and you lose together as a team, so he's not ready to slap his two drivers. And it is, as I said at the time, looking on an aerial view, it's an awful lot easier. When you're sitting down right alongside those headrests, you've got a tiny little mirrors. Your peripheral view is virtually zero, so you don't always know what's going on unless it's absolutely alongside you. Massa then pits just one short lap here, just 73 seconds this afternoon is a race pace. Short lap later, he's ready for his fuel and tyres. Alonso will lead the Grand Prix.
So, Michael Schumacher still yet to lead a lap for 3 races. He thought he was going to be leading 73 of them here this afternoon, but it's not so far worked out that way. A set of used Bridgestone tyres then going on to that car. They've chosen not to use a new set, use ones instead, and out onto the back straight he goes. And it's very hard to tell from this angle what that is. Is that a Ferrari coming down? Is that Michael Schumacher?
I think it is.
Looks like it, yeah. So Schumacher's outlap was obviously spectacular. He managed to get past the Midland, and Massa had a 1 second lead over him. Massa's in-lap obviously wasn't particularly fabulous, but somehow or other, they have managed to put Michael Schumacher in front of Felipe Massa.
I'd be interested to know the exact length of those pit stop times. Maybe they've fueled Massa a little bit longer, but it's very much done the job, hasn't it? It's put Michael... They were always going to do that at some point. They're not going to let Massa take points off Michael Schumacher on a day when Alonso's struggling. They would be crazy to do that. And it's the Midland of Albers that's running 11th and last at the moment, that was who now runs off the track as well for good measure, that was being lapped there as Michael Schumacher came through to take what is now second place, because Alonso does lead the race. It's lap 31 and his crew are getting ready for him. Ted has some more news on Ferrari.
No, Martin, it was actually longer. Michael stopped 8.2 seconds. Massa stopped 7.3, but it was just Michael's pace on new tyres coming out where we've seen Ferrari do that as Fernando Alonso just comes in. Steve Nielsen there ready on the clock, but, well, this isn't going to be enough to get him past Fisichella. Renault playing a very long game with Alonso, trying to maximise, and that's another set of used tyres there. The stop going well. Oh, it's very quick. 6.7, so short middle stint for Alonso.
So here's the situation. Felipe Massa on lap 29, which is the lap before he came into the pits, did a personal best, and in fact the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, a 1:12.954. The following lap, which was his in lap, bringing him into the pits, which is there I see Michael Schumacher just going through to take the lead, was a 1:33.7, and most of the drivers on their in-laps have been doing low 32s, so that was an extremely slow in-lap. For example, Alonso's in-lap was a 31.6, so 2 seconds slower on his in-lap, Felipe Massa. That is what happened there, and one would have to presume, Martin, that that's what he was instructed to do, because either that or he made a huge mistake losing 2 seconds on his in-lap. But why would he do that, having just set his fastest, in fact the fastest lap of the race the lap before?
We'll probably never know. What I do know is that when we watch Michael Schumacher come down that dusty pit lane and attack the speed limit line, he was on the ragged edge at the back end, all stepping out and sliding out. So Schumi was definitely attacking the pit lane very hard, and Massa, well, whatever. It doesn't really matter whether he did it intentionally or not. At some point, he's got to get his Ferrari behind Michael Schumacher. Let's be honest. I mean, if you were running the team, if anybody was running the team, you wouldn't let Massa take points off Schumacher. With the World Championship, we're more than halfway through it now. Massa doesn't have a prayer of winning the World Championship. Schumacher does.
And on a day, of course, so important when Alonso is so vulnerable. He hasn't left himself open like this at all so far this season. Here he is, the reigning world champion. He's had an iron-fisted grip on this year's title chase, and this is the first time that he's been vulnerable. Ferrari have to capitalise. You can see Alonso is now 5th. Trulli is the only car in front of him who has yet to make a pit stop, but of course Trulli started from the pit lane, so he's made great progress through the field, and he will probably be pitting quite a while from now. Well, Takuma Sato we saw getting involved with Thiago Monteiro after the restart, taking him out of the race. He is out of the Grand Prix as well. Let's see what he has to say to Louise Goodman.
Well, Takuma, Thiago says you drove into him. What do you say?
We already started braking when we are the half level, so we can't stopping any more further. And then basically what he did is just turn in all the time. And I just ran out of the space because the curve is coming. And you know, because I had to go to the launch in the curve, and we had a tangled. But really, you know, he knew it. I was in beside, and if I had one space, then we could go the side by side.
Thank you.
It's a bit like the primary school playground, isn't it? It wasn't me, it was him. But anyway, everybody's got their view, their opinion, and what was going on down there. It's not quite how I saw it, but bad luck for Takuma there, bad luck for Thiago Monteiro, because they surely had a chance of nicking a point or two today. Michael Schumacher leads from Massa now after Alonso's stop by 2.2 seconds. Trulli, who started from the pit lane, is up to P3 and presumably fueled very, very long. So Fisichella and Alonso down to 4th and 5th.
So we've only got 11 cars still running here of the 22 that took the start, as Christian Klien of Red Bull Racing makes his way in his street clothes out to watch the rest of this Grand Prix. We have lost Villeneuve to what looked like an engine seizure. We've lost Montero, who was taken out by Sato. Those two we've just heard from Sato. Button, we saw with low water pressure problems as a result of impact with the two McLarens of Raikkonen and Montoya, who tangled with each other in the opening lap and triggered a reaction that sent Nick Heidfeld barrel rolling into that gravel trap there.
How's the car balance, mate? How is the car?
Full grip oversteer. Now that's a surprise. The track is obviously, as I've said before, a bit of a living thing with the rubber going down and the heat and all of the emulsion making the surface slippery. We've seen him struggle to get the front end working all weekend, and now he's got the back end sliding. Too much front end. So Alonso really will be happy to get to the end of this Grand Prix, I think, and just get a reasonable number of points. He's 5th at the moment, but truly is kind of out of sequence really up there in 3rd, but lapping extremely well. Toyota looking strong here, both in the 1 minute 13s and both looking good. Toyota on for a haul of points.
Yeah, I think Alonso's got to keep an eye on Ralf Schumacher. He's behind him on the racetrack and lapping faster than he is by 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap. He's just a couple of seconds behind Alonso, who can't afford to make any mistakes here this afternoon. Ralf Schumacher has also pitted once, and so this is genuinely a fight for position between the Renault of Fernando Alonso and the Toyota of Ralf Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello in the Honda also on their pace, but he's further 6 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher at the moment. Trulli obviously is going to run very, very long in this race. We're riding on board with Tonio Liuzzi. This is the battle for 9th place. There could be some points here this afternoon for one of these two drivers. David Coulthard and Tonio Liuzzi. Yes, and they're both catching Rosberg. I think there's going to be a great sort of separate scrap going on for those final few points. Coulthard sort of hauling Liuzzi along with him, and they're just 1.6 seconds behind Nico Rosberg now, all lapping roughly the same speed, quite a bit off the pace actually, but they've yet to pit. They look like they're on 1 stoppers then, those 3 runners, which is why they're clearly slower. Spoiler lunch while he debriefs on the pit wall for Thiago Montero, who hands out T-shirts on the Friday of every Grand Prix. There's always a theme each weekend, and it's certainly caught on with all kinds of different personalities from Formula One going down there to collect their T-shirt every Friday. Here we are on board again with Liuzzi. Now remember, he's driving a rev-limited engine this year. Everybody else is on V8 power, but there was a little loophole for the under-financed teams that they could have a rev-limited V10 engine. So you can see Liuzzi's engine struggling to get much beyond 16,300 RPM in 7th gear on the back straight, whereas the V8s are allowed to rev to about 19,000 plus. Red line at 16.5 then.
Probably feels like it wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding compared to last year's full-fat V10s, but it's still getting a decent turn of speed down the pit straight there. It's just going to be interesting. Massa's now slowing down. I think he's had his moment of glory up front. He's now got to fall into line and play Michael Schumacher's rear gunner, and he's beginning to drop his pace a little bit, to slow it down, back himself into Jarno Trulli and Fisichella and control the rest of the field, because Ferrari haven't romped off in the way that I'm sure they expected and the whole pit lane expected they were going to do.
So Massa becoming the 7th man this season to have led laps of a Formula One Grand Prix. Amazingly, Fernando Alonso has led 66% of all the racing laps we've had so far this season, and I'm sure it certainly feels like that for those of you watching at home, but here this weekend he's not even getting a sniff of the race lead. But perhaps the most amazing statistic coming off the back of last season, where McLaren won 10 races, is that they've led only a total of 20 laps across all of the 9 Grand Prix we've had so far. That's certainly not the kind of performance that was expected from McLaren this season, and certainly in Montreal, where Kimi Raikkonen had a car that was quick enough to challenge Fernando Alonso. Just some misfortunes in the pit stops stopped him from doing that. I think he came here saying, hey, we're going to be very competitive in Indianapolis, and watch out for me on the top step of the podium. But the story this weekend has definitely been the Ferrari Bridgestone package coming good, and the question is this the pattern for the rest of the season, or is this just an Indianapolis one-off?
Jarno Trulli's only 6 seconds adrift of the Ferraris, stopping. They've all got to stop one more time. Obviously Trulli will have to stop longer to take on the remaining fuel that he needs to get to the end of the Grand Prix, but he could be a real spoiler this afternoon. From the pit lane, from the very back of the field, as you say, at least then avoiding all the carnage and chaos of the first two corners.
Well, don't forget that Trulli and his teammate Ralf Schumacher in the Toyota are on the Bridgestone tyre this year. Like Ferrari, they've come across from Michelin this season, and it's been a difficult adjustment for the Toyota team. They really struggled, particularly to get the front tyres to do what they wanted them to do and to grip going into the corners. But now they seem to be getting it right as the season wears on. Trulli was in the points for the first time this season in Montreal, and he's running a very comfortable third at the moment, lapping faster than both of the Ferraris in front of him, and he's just 2.5 seconds behind Felipe Massa.
That's a hard race when you're doing well, we used to get points down to 6, but I remember many of the Grand Prix I drove, you'd be 6th, 7th, 8th, and just driving your socks off to try to stay in the action and just try and scrape a World Championship point out of the afternoon, as Trulli pits then for what we surely are expecting his one and only pit stop. We'll see how long this is. It should be sort of 9-10 seconds if they're going to give him enough fuel. Yeah, they're fueling him to the end of the Grand Prix. And, well, Toyota looking strong, and as we said, but as you pointed out, James, on the same Bridgestone tyres as Ferrari. Ferrari really haven't just had the pace we expected. Why is that?
Well, unfortunately, Trulli had quite a slow in-lap. I suppose that's because that it takes account of the extra fuel going into the car. It was a long stop for him, so actually that's not as bad as it might appear for Jarno Trulli, who's been very competitive this weekend. On board into the pits then with Liuzzi. The mechanics go to work, clearing the radiators. There's a lot of debris around the track, sweet wrappers and crisp packets. Now Christian Albers sliding slightly into his Midland pit just in front. Slight adjustment in the seat for Liuzzi, and he's back out on track.
100 kilometers per hour, about 62 miles an hour is the limit until they get to the white line. Then they can just light it up and head off down to turn 1. Albers was running 11th, well, he's been lapped by the Ferraris, about to be lapped by the rest of the field, actually. So he was struggling. He must have been in the war somewhere in those first two corners. But Michael Schumacher on lap 41 leads over teammate Felipe Massa by 4 seconds. It's the two Renaults now after Trulli stopped that are running 3rd and 4th for Fisichella and Alonso.
Looking at Nico Rosberg, sole remaining Williams in this race, currently in a points-paying position in 8th place. David Coulthard just behind him, 0.8 of a second behind him, in fact. And Tonio Liuzzi has dropped back a little bit. He's now 22.5 seconds behind Coulthard, but of course he's made that stop where Coulthard has not.
Shift, so I repeat, I cannot shift, so I think the bottle is empty of the shifting. Copy that, we hear you, mate. We're looking at it now.
Problem with the gear shift there for the Midland of Christian Albers, his teammate Tiago Monteiro, already out of this Grand Prix. So looks like Midland might be another one of the teams to go away with both cars having retired here. Only 10 cars plus Albers still running here. And in fact, Albers is now shown as being retired on the computer. So 10 still running. And will they all make it to the finish, I wonder? Still 32 laps to go here. Yeah, Albers clearly running into trouble here. There is Johnny Herbert, the sporting director of Midland, and another tough weekend for him. Disappointing as well with their best team qualifying of the season so far, in 14th and 15th places, to come away empty-handed, particularly on a day like this where we might only have enough finishers to fill the points positions. Midland still looking for their first points of the season, of course.
Tell you what's working well is Liuzzi. Now he's got a new set of tyres. He's in the low 1:14. He could, depending on when Rosberg and Coulthard come in, Rosberg could just find himself at the front of that trio. Liuzzi, sorry, could find himself at the front of that trio.
APC. Nico, use APC now. Push hard, use APC.
Yep, don't know what a PC is. Presumably it's some kind of extra revs. Talking of revs, I think I've worked out why Ferrari are not romping away at the front like we thought. If you look at the speed traps, they're only the same speed as the other runners, and in fact Toyota and Renault are faster. There are 4 speed traps around the circuit, and I think they've turned the revs down quite heavily on that Ferrari, which explains why they just had such pace in qualifying, but in the race it hasn't translated to that. They backed it off a little bit. Presumably they've got some in hand if they need it.
This is lap 44 of the American Grand Prix. England may be out of the World Cup, but there's still a lot of action to come, and in fact on Tuesday night, live and exclusive on ITV1 at 7:30, you can see the first of the World Cup semi-finals between Germany and Italy, and Michael Schumacher and his Ferrari team will have a lot of interest in that one. Schumacher has been glued to the television throughout this weekend, watching pretty much every game he could possibly. Into the pits comes Nico Rosberg, who was in a points-paying position. David Coulthard has now moved into that 8th place, and they're fueling Rosberg to the finish.
Yeah, and but Liuzzi is flying out there. He stopped earlier than them. Can he get out in front of Rosberg? I think they're going to be extremely close when those three regroup. Rosberg, Liuzzi and Coulthard, and there in fact is Liuzzi coming down the pit straight, and it just works out. Now when Coulthard pits, he's the last man to pit in this Grand Prix. He's going to come out right in the middle of that pair somewhere, so we'll look forward to that. Michael Schumacher's lead up front now is just under 5 seconds, and they're beginning to pull clear of Fisichella. They're 11 seconds further ahead than the leading Renault. Alonso's 10 seconds behind his teammate and still struggling for pace. As we heard from his cockpit, it's oversteer, the back end sliding now rather than the front end.
Yeah, Alonso is in a dogfight with the 2 Toyotas of Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli. Trulli has made his one and only stop here this afternoon. Alonso will have to stop again. Ralf Schumacher is under 2 seconds now behind the Renault of Fernando Alonso, and Michael Schumacher could really do with his brother taking yet more points away from Alonso. But the man also that Alonso's really got to worry about is his former teammate Jarno Trulli, because he has to build a lead of around 22 seconds over Trulli to be sure of retaining position when Alonso comes in for his second and final stop here this afternoon. So it's a real rearguard action for Renault and Alonso here this afternoon. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I went into the Renault garage just a moment ago, asked them how confident were they of clearing Trulli at the Renault second stops. They said, yeah, we think we're okay. We've planned for that. We think we're going to be all right. But as you say, I mean, if Jarno's doing the pace he is, which is very solid and comparable to Fernando Alonso's, well, they're not going to do it. Alonso needs to get a serious shift on here.
Yeah, Trulli is only 20 seconds behind him. So at the moment, if they pitted, if Alonso pitted now, Trulli would, I'm sure, be ahead of him. Coulthard still to pit. Rosberg and Liuzzi at the moment 9th and 10th. Ferrari holding station at the front. You're right, Ted. Alonso's got to find some pace. He's got to bury that thing into the 1:13s, but I don't think he's got it underneath him.
No, Trulli's certainly keeping that gap pegged at around 10 seconds at the moment, and Alonso's got to find some magic from somewhere. Clearly, Trulli is carrying fuel to get him to the finish of this race, where Alonso is going to pit again in around about 6 or 7 laps time, something like that. So this is now where Alonso's got to do the work. Absolutely vital. What's the difference for him? Well, if he finishes in 4th place here today, he will get 5 World Championship points. With Schumacher taking 10, that would mean he'd lose only 5 of his 25-point margin. But should he fall behind the 2 Toyotas of Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli and finish in 6th place, he would only pick up 3 World Championship points, and things would get altogether more interesting from Michael Schumacher's point of view. So a very, very high-pressure day here for Fernando Alonso.
Red Bull looking a bit of a handful. Coulthard's 47 laps into this set of tyres. The back tyres look as if they're about to give up on life. Is he about to come in for a pit stop? Because this is costing him. He's lapping in the early 1-minute 15s, and Rosberg and Liuzzi are in the 14s, so he's going to end up right at the back of the pack. It's costing Red Bull a chance of some points, I think, without any further retirement. They probably should have pitted him and reacted to Liuzzi and Rosberg coming in.
Well, it was the best team qualifying of the season so far for the Midland F1 team, with Thiago Monteiro and Christian Albers looking quite promising on a day with only 10 cars still running at this stage. But it was no points today for Midland, and Johnny Herbert, their sporting director, is with Louise.
Johnny, you said to me before the start that we could have one of those bizarre races where the small teams pick up the points. Well, we have had one of those bizarre races, but no points.
No, sadly not. No, obviously that first corner was a bit of a problem for everybody. Unfortunately, we got involved with both of our cars. Then once Thiago got going, there was a lot of bodywork damage. The radiator was very loose in the side, so we had to bring him in and pull him off. And then, of course, on the restart after the pace car, with Christian coming into pit to change some tyres and just check it over. Of course, then Sato took him out as well, and it was pretty battle-scarred. But at the end of it, he lost drive. He didn't have any gears.
The body language in the garage tells me everybody's disappointed, because the points were in the offing today, weren't they?
Well, I think they were, and again, it's one of those things. You know, the first corner is always going to be difficult. I think with our guys, I don't think there's anyone to blame from what I've seen. It was just very, very tight. And then latterly with Sato, definitely he was just going too quick, too tight over the curb. It looked as if he lost his right suspension and then just clobbered in the side of Christian. But of course, if I look at the car now, it was battle-scarred as well. So for him to keep going, which you never know, could have happened, and he could have got points, but we're not.
Okay, David Coulthard has pitted. Here are Rosberg and Liuzzi. Where is Coulthard going to feed back into this one? Coming down the main straight. He's going aggressive. Is he going to get in front of Rosberg? It looks like he might. Rosberg's very close to him. Rosberg and Coulthard side by side, and Coulthard gets a little bit out of shape, but keeps his foot in it. Rosberg is right behind him, and Liuzzi as well. Well, we predicted it would be close, and that is exactly how close it is. And the winner is David Coulthard.
And the reason is he stopped a little bit shorter because he's gone further on that first tank of fuel. Brilliant, brilliant pit stop for the Red Bull team, and I just hope they got enough fuel in it. And a great in-lap from Coulthard, so it was falling away. He had a great chance to find himself on the back of that trio, and with all of those other pointers that I just explained to you, he found himself right at the front of it, and now he's got a chance of a World Championship point as Fisichella gets in amongst them to lap them.
Yeah, this is the scrap for 8th place, the final World Championship point here this afternoon. David Coulthard, Nico Rosberg, Antonio Liuzzi, and the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella is having to make his way through this battle. He's lapping these cars, of course. Fisichella currently running in 3rd place at the moment, and all weekend he has been the pick of the Renault drivers, faster than teammate Fernando Alonso. On the previous occasions when you could have said that, there's always been a reason why Alonso was handicapped, wasn't there? Like, for example, in Malaysia in qualifying, they put too much fuel in his car, and he was always on the back foot, Alonso. Fisichella won the race, but it's the first time for a while now that Fisichella's turned up at a racetrack and just blown the doors off Alonso.
Yeah, I think he fancied his chances, didn't he, last weekend too in Montreal, but jumped the start by a chunky amount, almost like he was starting the race this weekend. He was so eager to go and cost himself dearly. So yeah, Fisichella is definitely on an upslope at the moment. Barrichello having quite a quiet weekend, quiet race I should say, and here is the replay. Coulthard really having to get his shoulders out and stop Rosberg getting through there. That is absolutely critical. It's Rosberg now he'll be putting up with the turbulent and hot air. But Rosberg lost a lot of time later on in this lap, with Fisichella getting up behind him and just generally having got on the marble to try to get around Coulthard. Coulthard's pulled a big gap to them. You can see it now. Look at the gap back to Rosberg, so that puts Coulthard in a clear 8th at the moment.
Yep, looking pretty good. Michael Schumacher has just set his fastest lap of the race so far. It's only a couple of hundredths of a second slower than the overall fastest lap set by Felipe Massa on lap 29, indicating that Ferrari are probably going to have to make their second stop of the afternoon fairly soon. Schumacher's on the gas at big time. 7 seconds in front of teammate Massa, and a further 14 seconds behind them is Fisichella, who's steering himself towards a podium finish here this afternoon. Alonso is 10 seconds behind him and is worrying about the two Toyotas who are right behind him now. Ralf Schumacher's close to within a second of the Renault, and Jarno Trulli is still just 11 seconds behind Alonso. Alonso's running out of laps here to resist these Toyotas. It looks like both of them could well leapfrog him if he's not careful.
Yeah, he's staring 6th place in the face at the moment. We'll see how it works out. Michael Schumacher does a new fastest lap of the race on a 1:12.8. His lead now up to 7 seconds.
Out of turn 11 and up onto the banking then goes Tonio Liuzzi, chasing after Nico Rosberg. The crowd might look a little sparse to you at home, spread out as they are across these vast grandstands here at Indianapolis, but take it from me, there are a lot of people here this weekend as Liuzzi tucks into the slipstream behind Rosberg. Being towed like that down the straight in the slipstream is worth 8 miles an hour additional to your maximum speed down the straight. They're already doing about 205 miles an hour, but if you get a tow like that, it can pull you down an extra 8 miles an hour faster down the straight. It's really that great an effect, sucking you down the track.
As long as you've got enough margin of rev limiter from your 7th gear, you obviously want to rev them out quite near to peak power. But often if you get such a big tow, it just puts the thing into the rev limiter and it gets wasted. You have to compensate for that with your choice of 7th gear ratio.
So, as we suspected, Michael Schumacher may well be coming in for a pit stop. Which of the Ferraris was the first one to come in first time around? It was Michael. Yeah, a lap before Felipe Massa. This time it's Massa, though, who pits first. 21 laps to go here. We're riding on board. There's Ross Brawn, the technical director and chief strategist of the Ferrari team, who will have masterminded this weekend's race. How much fuel to carry in qualifying, exactly when to make the stops. He and Michael Schumacher have such a tremendous record between them. Ross is responsible for all but 3 of Schumacher's 86 Grand Prix victories. And he rejoins in front of the Renault. Let's see which one that is, of Fernando Alonso. So he slides back into 3rd place. Fisichella moves up to 2nd, but has got to make another stop here this afternoon, as has Alonso, as has Michael Schumacher.
Alonso's really fighting that Renault. We'll soon be ready for some tyres, but he hasn't gone that far on this set. Massa then looking very comfortable in 2nd place. He'll be grimacing a bit at all of that traffic he's got to negotiate ahead of him. That didn't work out too well for him, and as ever then Ralf Schumacher within 1.5 seconds of Fernando Alonso. And you have to say, truly, although his pace has dropped back into the mid-14s, the man in your screen now.
Push now, we have a small chance of getting fizzy. Push, push.
And that's exactly what I was about to tell you. If he really does pull something out of the bag, 3rd place, because he's 1 stopping against Fisichella's 2, he might just find himself up on the podium today. Fisichella is not comfortably 3rd yet.
No, he's not. He's 22 seconds before he made this pit stop ahead of Jarno Trulli. This needs to be a sharp stop here by Renault, and Trulli needs to have a slow lap for Fisi could definitely retain that position. Into the pits comes Ralf Schumacher as well. That's critical for Alonso's race. But let's have a look. Now, not quite enough for Jarno Trulli. So Fisichella is able to retain his position. That's how close Trulli has come, but it indicates that Trulli is going to leapfrog Fernando Alonso. So it looks almost certain now that Alonso is going to finish here 5th at best.
Now there is a delayed transmission on the Team Talk radio that we get, partly because of the logistics of it and partly to filter out the colourful language. But it's not that long ago that he was told to push. I think he should have been told to push 5 laps ago or something if he got anything left in his tank to have a go with. It certainly truly did pick up his pace. Michael Schumacher pits from the lead on lap. He now moves into lap 54.
So the race leader comfortable enough at the front. He wasn't leading in the early part of this Grand Prix. That was teammate Felipe Massa, who led the first 30 laps here at Indianapolis, despite the fact that Michael Schumacher started this race on pole position. Massa just got a better start than his vastly more experienced teammate. Behind them, of course, there was all hell broke loose with two different accidents which eliminated Kimi Räikkönen, Nick Heidfeld, Juan Pablo Montoya, Mark Webber, Scott Speed, Christian Klien and Frank Montagny on the opening lap. We've got 10 cars still running here and a chance of points for any of them, really, including Rosberg and Liuzzi, who are not far behind David Coulthard. But tremendous interest on this battle then between Alonso and the two Toyotas as this race goes into its closing stages. On board with Liuzzi, that's Rosberg in front of us.
They're falling about 5 seconds away from Coulthard now. They've dropped back into the 16s. Rosberg really struggling, having pitted in this second phase of the race for him on a one-stopper. They've been lapped by Fernando Alonso, and Rosberg really struggling for pace. Liuzzi just cannot, he seems to be running out of puff halfway down the straight on that restricted V10 to be able to really punish the cars in front of him that are clearly slower. You have to say, Liuzzi's had good speed but hasn't been able to do anything with it.
Well, he certainly had plenty of TV time this afternoon. Alonso dives into the pits as Liuzzi gets into the slipstream behind Nico Rosberg down this long main straight. There is Alonso. Ted Kravitz is in the Renault garage.
Yes, James, and that traffic will not have helped him. He managed to clear it before his in-lap, but it won't have helped Fernando Alonso's chances. Just a thought about it. He was very slow into his box, isn't he? Just a thought about that. Fernando Alonso is on the second race with his engine. It has done Canada, which he won, so he might be taking it easy. What's the problem now? Oh, just very slow on the lollipop. 8.4. That's a good second longer than it needed to be.
Well, he's been passed by at least one Toyota. Out of the pits comes Fernando Alonso. I think that's Rubens Barrichello in the background. I'm not sure, but I think it might be Rubens Barrichello. If that is, it was Ralf Schumacher we saw going through, and Alonso is behind both of the Toyotas. That is what the situation is. Alonso is behind both of the Toyotas. He's heading for just 3 World Championship points, with Michael Schumacher taking 10, and that will make the second half of this World Championship very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and he's a long way behind. There was clearly some kind of drama. They weren't ready to release him, although all 4 wheels appeared to be on okay and the fuel rig was well clear. Just either miscommunication or some other little drama at the back of the field.
It's going to be really close, Rubens, really close. Now, come on. Alonso has trouble, so put some pressure on him if you can.
We've got side by side down the main straight. Rosberg, oh my goodness me, that's debris from a previous accident. Once again, Rosberg is wheel to wheel with Liuzzi. That was absolutely unbelievable as they ran through some debris. That's there left behind from the accident earlier in the race. On the first lap into turn 1, we had a big pile-up. Then we had Sato hitting Montero. There's a lot of rubbish and bits and pieces down there into turn 1. That's what Rosberg threw up, but he really had a big go there, didn't he, Liuzzi?
Nico bothers me. He drives these cars like they're GP2 cars. It's a very easy mistake to make when you come out through the other formula, and he throws it around, but they are, the tyres are grippier, they're heavier, they're faster. You just can't sling an F1 car around quite in that fashion. You're going to hurt yourself. But Rosberg going for the big change of diving move down into turn 1 didn't pay off for him this time, climbing all over the debris that's been left there since the beginning of the race as well. And look how badly he's now compromised himself too, but Liuzzi then is in front of him now.
Yep, that was a pass for position then, and the Toro Rosso of Tonio Liuzzi using the same Michelin tyres, has passed the Bridgestone tyre car of Nico Rosberg, and Bridgestone have the upper hand here. This is how he did it, Martin.
Yeah, he got a good slipstream. Rosberg went to the inside early, and then look at this big swing across the track. If he'd have been caught out with the braking of that Toro Rosso, he would have been so high in the air and up against that fence. He'd have turned up on the satellite down at Indianapolis Airport. It's scary stuff, but Liuzzi now up to P9.
No points in the last 4 Grand Prix for the Williams team. It's been a bit of a lean season 2006 for them, and that's pretty hard to take, isn't it, being passed like that by the Toro Rosso of Liuzzi, who's having a strong race here this afternoon. He just hasn't quite got enough under him to challenge teammate David Coulthard. He was racing him earlier on, but he's lost touch with Coulthard now. 7.5 seconds behind as he is. What about Alonso? He's got 2.9 seconds margin over Barrichello. He cannot afford to lose any more points here this afternoon. They're battling, or will be battling, for 6th place, and currently Alonso is about 3 or 4 tenths of a second faster than Barrichello. So the Honda not quite quick enough when it needs to be. Terrific day, though, for Toyota. 4th and 5th, Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher. Terrific day for Trulli in particular, having started from the pit lane. Fastest lap of the race so far, set just 3 laps ago by Michael Schumacher, 1:12.7. That was immediately before his second and final pit stop. He's got this race under control. 12 seconds clear of Felipe Massa. Still just the 10 cars still running then. 3 of them have been lapped, Coulthard, Liuzzi and Rosberg. Barrichello 45 seconds behind race leader Michael Schumacher, but certainly in touch with the podium. Fisichella just only 20 seconds in front of him on the road. And that Renault is really struggling here this afternoon with Fernando Alonso. Back to Indianapolis, where Michael Schumacher is leading this Grand Prix, an example of Italy and Germany working together in perfect harmony. But on Tuesday night here on ITV1, live and exclusive, you can see those two trying to knock each other out of the World Cup for a place then in the final, the first of the World Cup semi-finals, Germany and Italy, right here on ITV1 on Tuesday night. Well, it's been a heck of an eventful race. We've only got 10 cars still running with 13 laps to go here. You're riding on board with Felipe Massa, who is in 2nd place. He led the first 30 laps of this Grand Prix, ahead of his teammate, got a better start than Michael Schumacher, but he had a very slow in-lap to his first pit stop, which handed the lead to Michael Schumacher. Whether he did it on purpose or it just was slow, we'll never know, but certainly Ferrari couldn't afford anything other than Schumacher to take maximum points here this afternoon, because World Championship leader Fernando Alonso is extremely vulnerable. He's already fallen behind his teammate and both of the Toyota cars, Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher. Alonso then currently in 6th place here this afternoon, and Rubens Barrichello was closing up on him, but now Alonso is resisting, so he can't afford to lose any more points here. But certainly it's going to whittle down his championship lead over Michael Schumacher and set us up for a pretty exciting second half of this year's World Championship. It's been eventful for other reasons as well. We had 2 accidents at the start involving both of the McLarens. Montoya appeared to drive into the back of his teammate Kimi Räikkönen. Also involved in that was Jenson Button, who had to retire. We lost Mark Webber, Scott Speed, Christian Klien and Frank Montagny in that same accident. So we were under safety car here for about 5 laps. And at the restart, Sato took out Montero, which frustrated Montero no end. Jacques Villeneuve has also retired with what looked like an engine failure, and Christian Albers had a gearbox problem. So just 10 cars still running, and you can see David Coulthard on for yet another World Championship point for Red Bull Racing. Behind him on the racetrack are Antonio Liuzzi and Nico Rosberg, the only other cars still circulating.
Ferrari have been sandbagging to an extent and protecting their engine. Michael Schumacher did a 1:12.7 with quite a heavy fuel load. And once he'd got that in the bag for a fastest lap, how many fastest laps he had in his career now? He's had 71 so far in his career. Once he got that in the bag, and he just backed straight off into the late 13s and 14s. So Ferrari did have quite a lot of speed in their pocket. They felt either not the confidence of using all of it or the need to use all of it. They're currently easily 1 and 2.
Yeah, a little more to it as well than that, I think, because that interesting thing about the Schumacher lap is that it was the lap after his pit stop. So he'd just taken on a fuel load, and he was able to do a 1:12.7, which was a 10th quicker than teammate Felipe Massa had managed up to that point, his fastest lap. And that's a little signal to all those of you at home who were thinking that maybe Massa was doing a better job in the opening phase and that he wasn't holding up Schumacher. That's just to let you all know that Schumacher's still the boss, and he's still much quicker than Massa when he wants to be. You're riding on board with the Brazilian. Absolutely devastated that his team were knocked out of the World Cup yesterday, but certainly making up for that today. Looking for second place here at Indianapolis, about to go out onto this long back straight. It's 1,820 meters long, this straight, 18 football pitches long, in other words. They're on full throttle for 23 seconds from turn 11 all the way down to the braking zone here of turn 1. That's the awesome part of Indianapolis. The rest of it is infield and some would say a little bit Michael Mouse.
Well, certainly it's all about Michael Schumacher today. The infield is not particularly challenging, and I think if your car's not working, you're just absolutely nowhere with it. It's an easy circuit to learn, but as ever creates some pretty... And that's Ralf Schumacher pitting unexpectedly, surely. That's his third stop of the afternoon, and he's going quite steady. Is that Ralf Schumacher dropping out of the Grand Prix? Ted is down there.
Yeah, it is, and they're completely unexpected. The mechanics had no idea he was coming out. They scrambled into the pit lane, but he has driven straight in to the Toyota garage as Ralf Schumacher. And how gutting is that? Because they were on for a load of points, but good for Alonso and Barrichello behind him.
Certainly good news for Alonso. That's another point he will pick up. He moves up into 5th place then. That's going to be 4 points for the afternoon from him. With Michael Schumacher looking set for 10, he's going to lose 6 points here rather than 7. And that'll mean he's 19 points clear going to France in 2 weeks' time instead of 18 points clear. Still, the gap narrowing, and there you can see Mr. Tomita, the boss of the Toyota Formula One team. And he must be pretty upset about that. Still, he's got Jarno Trulli in 4th place. There he is, having started this race from the pit lane. He had a suspension problem yesterday in the first part of qualifying, which made it for some spectacular pictures. The bottom of the car was trailing along the ground at 200 miles an hour, kicking out all kinds of sparks and dust. It turned out that one of the dampers was broken in the rear suspension, and so to fix that they had to take the car out of the parc fermé conditions that all the cars have to go in after qualifying, and to fix it and repair it, put a new damper in, and that meant that poor old Jarno Trulli would have to start this race from the pit lane. But what a great fist he's made of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Running 4th, just under 5 seconds behind the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella, and he came within a whisker of taking a podium place here from Fisichella.
Ralf Schumacher dropping out is also good news for Tonio Liuzzi and Toro Rosso. He's now in 8th place and 1 World Championship point. That'll be their first point if he gets to the end. Still 8 laps to go. If he gets to the end, obviously that used to be the Minardi team and they scored points, but Toro Rosso yet to get off the mark. So Liuzzi looking strong. Coulthard then up into 2 points position at the moment for P7. Barrichello's had a lonely race. He's only 5 seconds behind Alonso, but he's kind of in no man's land a little bit, but some 50 seconds ahead of the Red Bull of David Coulthard.
Well, Barrichello took a while to get going this season, and the early part was pretty lean for him. He got his first points in Australia, was 7th. He was 5th at the Nürburgring, 7th again in Barcelona, and 4th in Monaco. So fairly consistent from him, and looks like another 6th place here this afternoon, but certainly not what Honda had in mind. But I tell you, a team that will be really scratching their heads, Martin, is Williams. They've come here, they're on the same tyres as Toyota and Ferrari, the Bridgestone, which is definitely the tyre to be on this weekend. And Nico Rosberg, albeit that he had to start this race from the back of the grid, but still, Trulli started it from the pit lane, and he is, well, he's more than a minute up the road from Nico Rosberg. Williams, no points from the last 4 Grand Prix, and they need a fix there, don't they? Really badly.
Yeah, they were so unlucky. Where they were really flying was with the Weber in Monaco, and they had a problem with that exhaust and the heat protection thing in the engine department bay when they really were in for a haul of points. And I spoke to Sir Frank Williams this morning, and he was grimacing a bit. It is definitely difficult days at the moment for Williams.
Well, it wasn't exactly all beer and skittles last season either, as they made their divorce with BMW. There is Nico Rosberg. It looks like he's going to be the only car to make it to the finish who's not going to score a point here this afternoon. How gutted will he be about that? I think part of the reason is that they've been working very, very hard in the wind tunnel to get more downforce for the other circuits, and these low downforce tracks like here, they're obviously struggling with the package. Well, Ralf Schumacher, we saw retiring from what was looking a very promising position. He's with Louise Goodman.
Ralph, such cruel luck. Toyota were looking so strong. What's happened?
Due to a very long pedal, I came in and we found out there's a wheel bearing failure in the front left, so it was time to come in.
Difficult to take when that happens.
Yeah, it was a tough race for us. It was hot, car was not so easy to drive, but still, we're a comfortable 5th position. Fourth and 5th would have been great for the team.
Thanks, Ralph.
Long pedal is the brake pedal, of course. When the wheel bearing goes, the hub moves around and it pushes the brake pads away from the brake disc. So when you go into the corner, you can kind of pump them up down the straight, but you've got to do that before every corner. It becomes quite difficult in the end, but the brake pedal feels like the throttle pedal once that problem occurs.
So Michael Schumacher leading on lap 68, just 6 laps to go here at Indianapolis. Felipe Massa has settled into 2nd place here, and he'll be absolutely delighted with that. It's exactly what Michael Schumacher wants as well, taking as many points as he possibly can off Fernando Alonso in the championship battle, and that will be Felipe Massa's best ever Formula One finish if he can come through in 2nd place. Fisichella, teammate of Alonso, is in 3rd place. Then it's Jarno Trulli in the Toyota. 5th then Alonso, the World Championship leader, on a very difficult day of damage limitation. Rubens Barrichello is 6th, David Coulthard 7th, and that's the aftermath of that first lap accident. You can see Nick Heidfeldt's car that did a triple barrel roll. One of the McLarens, either Raikkonen or Montoya, who were eliminated, and also the Toro Rosso of Scott Speed. A very action-packed race, and well, all the race fans came back here this year after such a disappointing event here in 2005 when the Michelin teams weren't able to take part for safety reasons. We had a 6-car race and everybody was throwing things onto the track in dissatisfaction. Quite the reverse here this year. Formula One has come back triumphant to Formula One. It's put on a great show for the race fans. They've turned out in bigger numbers even than last year, and let's hope we're back here at Indianapolis in the future, as Bernie Ecclestone and the circuit's owner Tony George look to renew that contract. It would be fantastic to come back here. For sure, what happened last year is in the past, and this has been a wonderful homecoming for Formula One to Indianapolis.
Ted has further news on Nico Rosberg, who you're looking at now.
Yeah, down in the Williams garage, they're all looking suitably glum down here. Tony Ross, Nico's engineer, calling him, trying to get some time on Nico, on Antonio Liuzzi, but it doesn't seem he can. He puts in one good lap, gets the gap down to 2.5 seconds, Martin, and then does another sort of duff lap, and the gap is back up to 3 seconds. So he just doesn't have the consistency at the moment, Nico Rosberg. But Sam Michael Williams saying that they've got a new aero package coming for France the next race, which should help.
They'll be studying David Coulthard's sector times at the moment, though, to see if they might squeeze a point. Coulthard has done a couple of slow laps in the 1:16s. He's got it down to low 1:15. Liuzzi's coming at him. If Coulthard has got any kind of problem, then it might just give Williams a point. But Coulthard, I think, nursing something out there, judging by his pace. But the problem, particularly then, as you're looking at Antonio Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso, for Alonso, with Trulli in front of him, there's like a double whammy, really, because Renault can't manage Alonso ahead of Fisichella because they've got Trulli in between them, so they can't give him those extra points to help limit the damage this afternoon. If Trulli was behind Alonso, I'm sure Renault would be pulling a swap somehow.
Well, this is the second leg of a North American doubleheader. We were in Montreal, Canada last weekend, where Fernando Alonso won the race, and well, each team sent 120 crates out to these races with 10,000 individual parts of cars in it, 32 tons in total of cars and bits of freight. 3 race cars go on pallets in a 747 freight plane, and it's quite an operation getting Formula One around the world. They will all be flying back tomorrow to be stripped down, ready to go to the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours in 2 weeks' time. You're riding on board with second-place man Felipe Massa in the Ferrari. A little bit of nerves down there in the Ferrari garage. They're looking for their first 1-2 of the season, and what an important place to do it. Apparently, is it 4 in 10? Or is it 6 in 10 Ferraris are sold in America? I think it's 4 in 10 of all Ferraris made are sold in the USA. It's their most important market.
Yeah, probably bright red with white leather or something into California, but whatever, they do like to buy them over here. Michael Schumacher 14.5 seconds ahead of a slightly disinterested Felipe Massa, I'd imagine. That's not his full and true pace today. No, he's very much the rear gunner, as we said earlier on. That's Coulthard. What's he doing last time round? Still in the 115s. Liuzzi's got the gap down to 7.4 seconds now, but there's not enough laps to do anything about it, and David Coulthard knows that well. That'll be 509 points scored for David Coulthard if he gets this Red Bull across the line. Not today, of course, in his career.
On board with Fisichella. You can hear he's not using all the revs now. This is a new engine for Fisichella this weekend. It was one of the advantages he had over his teammate Alonso, but by no means explains the advantage he's had in pace all weekend. He really has put his teammate in the shade comprehensively this weekend. Alonso hasn't been able to get his car balanced under him. He's been complaining of understeer in qualifying, severe oversteer, which is where the back of the car wants to swing out through the corners during the course of the race, and a very miserable Fernando Alonso will be skulking in 5th place here behind this man Jarno Trulli in the Toyota, on for his 2nd points finish in a row after getting some points in Montreal. He's thrown a few away this year with poor reliability, but now it looks like Toyota are hitting some form.
We just signed Trulli on a new 3-year deal, although I believe it's 1 year at a time with options at the end of each year on behalf of the team, which is not that surprising, given that what age has he got now, Jarno Trulli, 31 years old. It would be very surprising to sign him up for the full 3-year package. But as ever, the oldest man in the field, Michael Schumacher, is leading the Grand Prix. Not as ever, but certainly, and he's just been brilliant here, hasn't he? He's never failed to pull out something spectacular at this racetrack. Just seems to suit him somehow.
They absolutely love him here as well, and he'll be delighted to see another piece of history out the window, that Fernando Alonso's 15 consecutive finishes on the podium streak has come to an end here. Alonso is going to finish down in 5th place. Michael Schumacher, though, who has won this race 4 of the last 6 times, is going to make it 5 out of 7 at Indianapolis. Only a few more corners to go then. Waving to the crowd, he's so relaxed as he goes through turn 9 and the 60-mile-an-hour turn 10. One of the wonderful things about Indianapolis is you can walk, as a spectator, you can walk all the way around the infield section with a £35 ticket. You can go absolutely everywhere here. They've turned out, they love Ferrari in America, and Michael Schumacher has been absolutely buoyant. He is the King of America today. Michael Schumacher wins! A very different reception from 12 months ago. A very different race. A triumphant performance from Ferrari and from Formula One in general back in America after last year. Fisichella gets something for Renault out of the afternoon with 3rd place. There's Jarno Trulli. A wonderful, wonderful drive from him from the pit, starting from the pit lane. And there is the World Championship leader. Fernando Alonso comes through in 5th place. What a terrific race and a terrific result for Ferrari.
Stefano Domenicali there, the team manager, well satisfied with that. They needed that. The Formula One Championship needs that, doesn't it? Michael Schumacher won by just the 8 seconds in the end as he coasted around on that last lap.
Well, you don't need me to tell you how popular a win that is for Ferrari and for Michael Schumacher. That's Jacques Villeneuve's stricken BMW, which we lost earlier in the Grand Prix to engine failure. And what a record this guy has around this place.
22 starters, just the 9 finishers then. It's even more pain, isn't it, for Nico Rosberg? 9 cars finished, 8 of whom scored some points. He's the only one who doesn't.
Yeah, and he's just 3.5 seconds off Tonio Liuzzi. He's driven his heart out for 73 laps, and he's come away empty-handed, and he's just 3.5 seconds away from a point. First points ever then in Formula One that they're going to get to keep, hopefully, for Toro Rosso. Scott Speed got a point in Australia, but it was taken away from him for passing under yellow flags. So historic day here in America, an important market for Red Bull, with David Coulthard finishing in 7th as well. There's all the non-finishers on a terrific day of attrition here.
Villeneuve engine Montero taken out by Sato. Button engine problem after that incident, I'd imagine. Raikkonen caught up in the second corner shunt. Heidfeld flipping through the air. Montoya, who for whatever reason started that incident, also out in the second McLaren. Webber caught up with it on the way into turn 1 in the Williams. Scott Speed taken out of the race too very early on. Just got, unfortunately for him, couldn't avoid the incident in turn 2. Clean, big accident down into turn 1. And Montagny similarly caught up before he ever got up to the exit of turn 1.
There's Ross Brawn, the mastermind behind this victory, waiting for his drivers in Parc Fermé. Look how much it means to him and all the thousands of Ferrari fans around this track. Michael Schumacher has won the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis for the 5th time in 7 years, and possibly set up a very exciting second half of this 2006 World Championship. He's closed the gap to Fernando Alonso this afternoon. It was Giancarlo Fisichella who was the faster of the 2 Renaults here at Indianapolis, but Michael Schumacher, you can see how much it means to him. A wonderful victory. This stadium absolutely packed with Ferrari fans from all over the United States. Felipe Massa, his teammate, gets his best result in Formula One in 2nd place. And, well, that 3rd place for Fisichella, he really has put Alonso in the shade all weekend here.
Yeah, it's well deserved from Fisichella. Renault never able to match the pace of the Ferraris. Bridgestone with a clear advantage here over the Michelin runners. We don't know just how good McLaren would have been, both their cars out before they exited turn 2, unfortunately. Felipe Massa played a very good supporting role, rear gunner there for Michael Schumacher, which at the end of the day is his job.
Yep, he didn't make any mistakes. He's made a few earlier in the season, but he didn't make any mistakes here this afternoon, and a very important job done there. So we've had some strong drives. We've had only 9 finishers. Tonio Liuzzi picks up first points for Toro Rosso in Formula One, formerly the Minardi team. Big thanks there for the big man from Bridgestone, from Michael Schumacher, for their work here this afternoon. David Coulthard picks up a couple of points as well. Jarno Trulli finished in 4th place, having started from the pit lane. Who's your driver of the day?
Well, I'm very quick to criticise him when he appears to let everybody pass him easily and disappears for a few races at a time. But today I think he's done a great job, and that's Jarno Trulli in the Toyota from the pit lane. And OK, the safety car played into his hands and he did avoid all of the incidents in the first corner, but his pace was strong all the way through the Grand Prix, and I thought he did the best job of anybody out there.
Well, he did a one-stop strategy this afternoon, starting from the pit lane. He went very, very long into the Grand Prix. That was a big part of it, but he was in front of Ralf Schumacher, his teammate, who started 8th on the grid when Ralf retired from this race, so he would really made progress, Jarno Trulli, and a very deserved driver of the day accolade for him.
close Fizzy would have got to the Ferraris had he have not been tucked up behind Alonso. It's good stuff from Alonso down into turn 1, wasn't it? I really enjoyed that. And wheel to wheel with Michael Schumacher. And Alonso probably would love to have run into Schumacher down there and taken him out. If that is the way it turned out, he had nothing to lose. He knew he was going to lose points to the Ferrari today. So Alonso just threw it in alongside through turn 2. Michael gave him just enough space to get away with it. But then at the first pit stop, somehow or other, Massa steady on the way in. Michael assumes the lead.
Yeah, Massa led the first 30 laps here, but it was Schumacher that came out in front after the first round of pit stops. Ferrari had to have him in front of Massa today, despite the fact that Massa was the one that got the better start.
And Alonso, I was just pushing a little bit or slowly a little bit.
Schumacher's 240th Grand Prix start, his 87th victory. His third of this season, and what a vital one at a vital time. National anthems of Germany and then Italy. Tony George, the boss of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, hands the trophy to Schumi. And his best result in Formula One so far. Felipe Massa just standing alongside him. Ross Brawn, the mastermind of all but 3 of Schumacher's race victories now. 84 wins they've had together. Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher. Well deserved for Felipe Massa. Wonder what he can go on to from here. He drove very well today, very mature drive, led the opening stages. And the damage limitation exercise, as far as Renault are concerned, with Fisichella picking up a podium place. Well, they seem happy enough. It's been a long haul here. 2 legs in North America, Montreal and now Indianapolis. And the great news is that it's been a very triumphant return to the Brickyard for Formula One.
Congratulations, another champagne!